This period is the beginning of the High Middle Ages, or what we call the High Middle Ages, meaning we identify this period as a time of cultural flourishing in knowledge, language, but also architecture and culture. So you'll have to read about some of this in the textbook, but I want to talk to you about the Gothic and how the Gothic represents and embodies the values of this particular period. To begin, let's think of the differences between the two, the Romanesque style and the Gothic style of architecture, because both tell us something about the period in which they emerge. Think about your impressions of Gothic architecture when you look at the images in the textbook. Now, Gothic is a style that reflects the period, one of confidence and prosperity. But let's look at the difference with Romanesque. You have two slides to compare with both photos and representations. Remember that Romanesque architecture signifies that these were above all houses of prayer. They reflect a monastic ideal that emerged at the end of the ancient world. Cathedrals have a different purpose that reflects the time period, as you can see in the next slide. First of all, they were made possible by new technologies, such as the expansion of mathematical knowledge inherited from Al-Andalus, and by the use of local material. In France, the use of limestone. In England, the use of limestone and marble, but also the availability of wood from medieval forests. In fact, this is why the Notre Dame fire, of which you have a photo on your slide, took off so fast, because the entire ceiling and roof was made of medieval timber, still intact from the time period. Now, Gothic cathedrals were also a sign of wealth and pride in the city, and they reflect the commercial, social, and religious focus of the city. Let's think about how they were designed. If you can look at the next slide. Now, notice that thanks to the commercial revolution, it is striking that the Gothic style can be found rather homogeneously all throughout Europe. These cathedrals were designed to create an impression of power and awe for worshippers and for those coming to the city. They demonstrate the might of God, but also the might of the institution, the church. For this, let's look at the most famous and the oldest Gothic cathedral, that is Notre Dame de Paris, that set off on fire, as you saw earlier. Notre Dame was built between 1163 and 1260 in the Ile de la Cité at the center of Paris. It was consecrated to the Virgin Mary. In fact, it was so important that Napoleon was crowned emperor there. Joan of Arc was beatified there. And to this day, it is one of the most visited monuments in Paris, with 12 million visitors per year. It was designed, as most Gothic cathedrals, to represent the universe in microcosm. As you can see on the slide, the mathematical and geometrical nature of the construction is supposed to embody an orderly universe. And as you can see in the next two slides, the sculptures and the windows, the stained glass windows, display the essence of creation, as well as significant Christian figures and stories. And these would have been important because people were either not literate or they could not understand Latin, and Mass was usually spoken in Latin. Next, what we can see is that the soaring heights made possible by the use of ribbed vaults and walls that are not so thick emphasize verticality and light, as you can see in the next slide, so that the choir would be suffused in light. The impression was, as the next slide shows, that one would be moving from the slime of the earth to the purity of heaven. and the transept would form a Latin cross, while the pointed arch, inspired by Islamic architecture, also reaches high above. Now, I encourage you to listen to the Gregorian chant, Agnus Dei, and to think about the meaning and the experience of this chant in such a setting.